All right, welcome back to another episode of the Resilient Realtor, where we are talking all about how do we develop more resiliency in our business. It's a crazy business. It's a crazy business. So how do we stick with it? How do we battle burnout? How do we stay resilient in the face of adversity? That's what we're tackling here. And today's episode is going to be awesome. One of the things that I hear from a lot of real estate agents, being a team lead and all these kinds of, I talk to a lot of realtors. And one of the biggest things that I hear from them when I say, hey, what do you really want to create in your business? The number one thing that I hear is freedom. And I go, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. What does it mean to you to create freedom in your life, in your business? And the reality is it's a very loaded question. That's what's so much fun about it. So today we're going to talk all about what does it mean to create freedom in your life and in your business? How do you do it? And how does resiliency play a role in creating freedom? So let's jump right in.
Well, hold on. Before we go any further, I just want to say like and subscribe. Leave comments so that we know what you guys are liking, any kind of feedback. But let's jump in.
Yeah, all feedback's good feedback. We want to know what's resonating with you and what's not. We want to make this show relevant. We need your feedback to do that. About freedom. We're talking about everybody wants freedom, right? Everybody wants to be free. I want to do what I want, when I want. I want as much money as I want. I don't want to have to answer to anybody. That's what we all want, right? That's kind of like what retirement is. So that's all fine and dandy, but let's call a spade a spade. Freedom's not free. Perfect example, the Revolutionary War. It was not free to gain our independence from tyrannical, regime that was, Britain at the time coming in telling us what we had to do in order to overcome the oppression that the Americans felt during that time. They had to make sacrifices. They had to do things that they did not want to do because I hate to break it to you. I don't know if you knew this, Allison. I don't know if the people listening to this know, but freedom's not free.
What?
What? I know. I just blew your mind.
Well, that's a great metaphor to begin because the thing is here we are in 2026. We're working our butts off. Everybody is working really, really hard. And oftentimes I think we get into this space where we feel like we're in a cage or we feel like we're locked down by something and we want that freedom. And so how do we get there as we are in this space of burning out is the question.
Right. And so that's what we're going to talk about here today. And as always, it's not that we have all the answers. It's just we have some thoughts and some ideas, and maybe some of them interest you, and maybe you think we're full of crap. No matter the case, let us know what you think. We're just trying our best to make the world a little bit better by improving the lives of our friends that are in real estate and trying to give some feedback that we've learned from other people. And so with that, let's jump right in. So we know freedom's not free. We know that it costs something. So what does that mean though? Well, actually, let's start with this. When I hear people talk about in real estate, they talk about they want freedom. What does that mean? What are they really talking about? And, I'll just start off with my opinion. What I typically hear is they want financial freedom. They want to be able to do what they want and work as much as or as little as they want, and, those kinds of things. And that totally makes sense. I want that too. And I wouldn't say that I'm there yet, but I will be there at some point. Allison, what do you think it is about that's so alluring to people? Because I would say 95% of the agents that I talk to, maybe 100% of the agents that I talk to, when you get down to it, that's what they want. They want freedom. And a lot of times it comes down to that financial freedom. What's so alluring about that?
Well, you're talking about money, and you're also talking about the ability to have the time and the energy, maybe even the mental capacity to just be able to do whatever you want whenever you want,
And not be
um,
so overwhelmed
and
and
not be so
overworked. And
overwhelmed and burdened. Exactly.
yeah.
And I believe that when we get into these spaces, that is a jail cell. We're tied down by these things that we're doing. Like we have to go sell houses, we have to go make money.
Which we don't. You don't have to.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
But the idea is in order to have financial freedom, I have to go sell a house or many
Right.
houses. It's kind of a paradox because we get into these places where we want to go make the money, but then we can't find the energy or we're feeling burnt out. And so
Right.
we get into a place of I think it's being backed into a corner.
Yeah.
But we want that thing. We want the freedom. And so it's like we're spinning our wheels.
Well, and I've been there before. I mean, it's for those of you that don't know me, I actually was trying to get out of real estate. This was about 4 years ago. It was before I came to EXP at my old brokerage because that exact reason. So there's a couple little components to it here. Number one, I wanted to create leverage. Why? Because I wanted financial freedom, and I couldn't figure out how to do that in the old model of real estate. That's a story for another day. But it felt like, just to go back to what I was feeling in that moment, is it was like I close a deal and then there's another one right there. And then I close it and there's another one. And I close it and there's another one. And I'm looking at my life going, okay, well, but at what point do I actually get so far ahead that I have financial freedom? And I was having a hard time finding that in my business. And I think one of the problems that a lot of real estate agents run into, there's a couple of them when we talk about freedom. Number one is we're looking for an outside shift to create an internal experience.
Totally.
And I think that's kind of what you're talking about is the jail cell. I felt the jail cell. I was just like, there is no escape. I'm in it. I have to sell houses. I have to do more. I have to generate more income so maybe one day I can enjoy my life. And there's a big man, it's a not a fun place to be in because you hate your life now. That might be a strong word, but that's kind of how I felt. I would tell Allison, like, I didn't get into this business to experience what I'm experiencing right now. This is terrible.
It's
And so
painful to be in that kind of spot.
right. And so
And
my question to one of these agents would be, are you willing to trade the next 10 years of your life while your kids are young and, while you're young and all of these things? Are you willing to trade your experience and make it miserable for the next 10 years in order to create freedom 10 years from now? And hopefully that external circumstance is going to make you feel better internally. Just something to ponder. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, that's okay. I am curious, when you were in that spot, and I mean, I know what happened, but just for the listeners, like, we're talking about resiliency. So, how did you get into that place that you found that actually resiliency is creating the freedom that you are now experiencing? And
Right.
how did you get there?
So that's another one of those kind of weird dichotomies, right? Resiliency really starts in your mind. It's a choice. In that moment, I opened up myself to like what other options are available. Long story short, ultimately I ended up coming to EXP, starting a team, doing all of these kinds of things. So I was number one, I was able to change my external circumstances, and that definitely helped to a certain extent. But here's the reality. When we talk about resiliency, resiliency is not an outside game. That resiliency is not like hoping that the best player on the other team gets injured so that, you can walk all over them, right? That's not
It's
resiliency.
it's
Resiliency
not
is like,
outside circumstances.
right. It's about going inward and it's about understanding how to persevere through something and change your mindset so that you can persevere through the difficult things. And so sometimes, you know what, if we want to create financial freedom, we've got to go grind time. We have to. Freedom isn't free. We have to pay the toll if we want to get where we want to go. If we want financial freedom, sorry, man, like it's going to be a grind. but it doesn't have to be the kind of grind that drives you into the ground.
Yes. And I also want to say that I believe it's about an intentional grind, an
Yeah.
intentional grind, like not plowing yourself forward so that you're so tired that you can't do anything and you're grumpy and you hate life. Like that's not resiliency.
So if we go back to my journey, I'm in this moment. I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to sell houses anymore. I'm done. I'm out. So part of the recipe for me was changing my external circumstances. I found a different way of doing business that was more appealing to me, and that definitely helped. But it also created a new kind of, I wouldn't say problem, but a new task. And ultimately, what I discovered was over time, and this is a fairly new discovery for me, I would say over the last year or two, where I've learned that it has nothing to do with what's going on outside. If I'm going to be resilient, I have got to change the way that I am speaking to myself. I have got to change the way that I'm framing up everything that's happening in my life. And we talked about reframing in the last episode, but I have a choice to look at all of the things that I have on my plate as a hurdle that has to be jumped and overcome. And it's this horrible, difficult thing that I got to do, or find a way to find the joy and the peace in the grind. There's been lots of layers on top of that of like, okay, well, how do you do that? Well, I'm constantly changing my external circumstances. I want more things that feed my soul and less things that I hate in my life and in my business. But I also want to change my relationship to all of the things that I'm doing. And so ultimately, what that ends up doing for me is it's creating a freedom in my head. It's getting me out of the head prison. It's giving me freedom now.
Ooh, presence.
Yeah. Yeah, presence. Yeah. And like I don't feel trapped anymore. I feel like I have
Why?
freedom because I have choice.
There you go.
We,
Yeah.
we don't have to sell houses. You don't have to sell houses, but you're choosing to. You are choosing to. It doesn't have to be a grind either. You can choose to enjoy the challenges, or you can choose to hate the challenges and complain about the challenges and be the victim to the challenges. These are all choices that we make, and I've made all those choices. And I don't like living in that space. I much prefer living in the space where I have the choice to create the life that I want to create, and it's in that there's power. And for me, that's energizing. That's resiliency. If it's not working for me, I have the power to change it. I am not a victim. And that's very empowering to me.
Even though you didn't use the word flexibility, it's this word keeps coming up for me when we are talking on these podcasts. And something else that, as you were talking, really came to my mind. I talk a lot about Joe Dispenza. I'm like neck deep in all of his podcasts. And he is a neuroscientist. For those that don't know, he is really all about changing the way that he's all about talking about and educating people on how to change the way that they are thinking to create a different life. And it's what you're talking about reminds me of the episode that I just listened to, where it's really about letting go of the past that has anchored you down, like letting go of the victimhood, or letting go of these mindsets that are ultimately crushing us and putting us into places where we are not resilient, where we're actually stuck.
We're stuck and we're like de-energized, which
Exactly.
is the exact opposite of what we want if we're going to
Right.
persevere.
So the idea is to become very aligned, and that's why I was using the word an intentional grind, because when we can become intentional, and then we can also become aligned with our intentions, and we energetically, meaning visualize and also have purpose to move forward with this new way of being, our thoughts begin to change, our neurobiology begins to change, and we actually start acting differently. And therefore, that's part of resiliency. So I'll probably be blabbing on about Joe
No,
Dispenza throughout these
it's
podcasts, but I just feel like that's really something to be very aware is that the resiliency piece is about leaning forward in a very intentional way.
well, and it's a learned skill. And this is another
Yes.
thing that we'll be talking about a lot is that resiliency isn't like, oh, you have it or you don't. Eh, it's like, do you know how to knit? So maybe right now you don't know how to knit, but if you watch a couple YouTube videos, you know how to knit. So do you know how to knit? If you learn it, it's the same thing with resiliency. I didn't know how to be resilient. We'll call it in my past life, 10 years ago, I did not know how to be resilient. I had to have people teach me how to be resilient. And it's ultimately, I think it comes down to choice. It comes down to like how we interact with the outside world and how we interact with our inside world. And so by becoming more intentional and practicing intentionality, I'm starting to feel more powerful because I'm feeling more resilient, because I have more energy, because I feel empowered. Those are all learned skills, and it did not happen overnight.
And it's a practice.
Right. It takes time. And I think the other thing too that's really important to, really understand here is going back to this idea of, oh, I want freedom. And once again, I hear this from agents all the time. I want freedom. And let's just say it's financial freedom. That's fantastic. So here's what you need to do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, great, I'm on it. And on day one, they quit. I think it's really important to recognize here, we're talking to real estate agents, talking to real estate agents. It's really important to note here that if you want financial freedom, then there is a combination of intentional grind. And well, actually, I wouldn't say that. No, no, no. There's a combination of like maybe grind that you just have to do and grind that you don't like to do. It should all be intentional. Like I'll walk into certain situations and be like, okay, I know that this isn't, I'm not going to be doing this forever, and this isn't necessarily what I want to be doing right now. However, this is going to get me financial freedom in the future. I'm all in. Let's go. That's intentional grind. It doesn't mean I love every second of it, but I'm intentional about it. And so, if there's one message that I can really bring home today on this, like, I want freedom. How do we create freedom in our real estate business? Is that, and how do I develop resiliency? It's that we are, number one, it's not all going to be rainbows and unicorns. If you want financial freedom, you better make some deposits. And those deposits, sometimes they suck. Sometimes they take 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, where you don't feel like you're getting the return, but you're putting in the time, you're being intentional about what you're doing, and eventually it will click. It will work. It will happen, but it will not be given to you. It will not fall into your lap.
You must go out and create it.
You have to create it. You are not a victim
You're a
unless you
creator.
choose. Yeah, it's a choice. Do you want to choose to be the victim or do you want to choose to be the creator? It's 100% up to you. And so, once again, how do we create resiliency to create freedom? I think a lot of it, I think the term that you used, Allison, and we didn't talk about this beforehand, is that what was
Grind.
intentional,
Intentional
intentional
grind.
grind, intentional grind. I think that's a great way of putting it.
I coined it, baby.
The intention of this podcast is not to be preachy. We have no intention of like, hey, this is the way that you have to do it. So there's lots of different ways to do this. And that's what I love about this concept is that it's very layered. Like, what does resiliency really mean? How do you stay intentional when you're grinding? It's a very layered conversation. So we're going to get more and more into that over time as we continue to do this podcast. And we're going to keep peeling back the layers of the onion, which is why we want you to stay tuned to what we're doing and give us feedback and subscribe to the podcast and subscribe to our newsletter and all of these things that we have going. Come to our classes that we have. All of these things we are offering up so we can continue to peel back the layers of what this actually looks like, because I believe, real quick, What is a belief? A belief is a story that we tell ourselves over and over and over again. So I've seen it and I choose to tell myself this story, but I believe that every single person that's in real estate agent has the ability to be successful, however they want to define that. And our mindset is the foundation for all of it. How we view the world, how we see the world, how we interpret the world, how we speak to the world, how we interact with the world in every facet. That's our mindset. It's the foundation of our entire experience of life. And so if we want to be successful in real estate, we have to build that foundation. And resiliency is a byproduct of our mindset. Or I guess I should say resiliency, or the lack thereof, is a byproduct of
What's
our
going on
mindset.
in our minds? Yep,
Right.
exactly.
And so I want nothing more than for you to be successful. I want you to create financial freedom. I want you to become more resilient. I want you to share ideas on what you're doing to become more resilient in the comments on this podcast, because I believe that you can create whatever it is that you want to create. But just remember, freedom is great. We all want freedom. But the reason why so few people get it is because so few people are willing to make the deposits that are required to create that freedom. And when the going gets tough, they start to see themselves as a victim instead of as a powerhouse. And so I encourage you to see yourself as the powerhouse. You are resilient. You have everything you need to be successful in this business. It's just a matter of getting intentional and going out there and doing the work and finding the sunny side of the grind.
Ooh, I like that.
I
The
coined
sunny
that one.
side. The sunny side
You
of
heard
the
it here
grind.
first. Allison, do you have any closing comments here before we wrap things up?
I would say, so doing these things that we're talking about is uncomfortable. And that's really what you were wrapping up with. It's just plain out uncomfortable. And so be ready to be uncomfortable and be okay with the uncomfortability, if that's a word. Like, just move into that, because that is what is lean into that, because that's what is going to help you go into the unknown, which is actually where all creativity and possibilities live.
Well, and it's in that uncomfortability that we find the opportunity to practice resiliency.
There you go.
And, to get stronger and to get tougher and to learn these lessons and find out what we're made of and all of those kinds of things. And so if the objective is to be comfortable, well, you're going to have to get uncomfortable to get there.
That's right.
And chances are you're going to get uncomfortable even when you're trying to be comfortable, So at the end of the day, it's really our relationship to that uncomfortableness. If we're constantly trying to run away from discomfort rather than seeing it as an opportunity or a message to get better, or, an opportunity to practice something, as long as we see it as the adversary, we're going to be living in that prison, in that jail cell in our mind. We will not be free. So here's the ironic part of the whole thing. If you want freedom, if you want to feel free and experience freedom, you actually have to lean into the grind, which is the thing that almost feels like that's not that's the opposite of the freedom.
It's the
But it's the
paradox.
grind, it's the discomfort, it's the difficulty that we're going through that feels like we don't have freedom, that actually gives us the ability to create freedom in our life, because it's our relationship to those things that ultimately gives us the freedom of mind that we've been looking for. And we can create that today. That's the cool part. I wish somebody would have told me that 10 years ago.
So make sure you like and subscribe. We're going to be having guests on the show. Contact us through the Resilient Realtor website. We would love to have you on.
Well, thank you, everybody. As always, we appreciate you coming on, watching the podcast, liking, subscribing, giving us the comments, giving us the feedback, subscribing to our newsletter. You can download a free copy of our book on the website. All these good things. We appreciate you guys. We thank you. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Here's to your journey in our world, my friends. We will see you on the next one.
Bye.